What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you a test hand combo video for the Invoked profile I showed you all the other day. So what's really cool about the new Invoked cards is that it gives the deck just so much more pushes and advantage with what it can kind of put together. And it also has a lot of versatility and a lot of variation. So depending on what you want to try and achieve and what you're facing, you can do an end field of loads of different types. So you can rely on Oceanus, which gives you the ability of basically a macro on your side of the field. Or you can go for Elysium, or you can go for Macabre, or you can try to do a combination of all three of them. So what I thought I would do in this video is show you a randomized test stand of what the deck can do going first and going second. So after a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, let's start off with an opening hand of 5, beginning with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Pretty good start here already. So we've got 2 hand interactions, which is a pretty good start just to kind of back everything up on our field. We've got either the normal summon of the remnants or we've got the extender of the remnants. We also then have the Sacred Spirit Sword. Now with this one we have the option of 1 of 3 effects. Either special summon an Awais Divine Spirit of the Law from the deck or graveyard, which is actually quite important because it gives you direct access to either of the new Alistairs. We can take an Alistair from the deck and either send it to the graveyard or banish it. Or we get to look at 3 random face down cards from our opponent's extra deck, and if we do, banish one of them. So it kind of comes down to, if you want to know exactly what your opponent's playing early on, you can give this a bit of a go. Or you can try and focus on taking away 4 cards from your opponent's extra deck. Ultimately you end up using this, and then you end up using the brand new Hyper Invoked Aeon. And you can decimate the extra deck pretty fast because you can make an Aeon during your turn and an Aeon during your opponent's turn, taking away 6, and then by using this you take away a 7th. But because I want to show you as much of this deck as possible with how it can kind of combo through, we're actually going to utilize the first one to special summon an Awais directly from the deck. Now the reason we're going to do this is not only are we going to get the wind attribute into rotation, but we also get to use this on-field effect to banish it from the hand or field to add any Alistair monster from our deck to the hand. But then the other benefit is, because we use this card from the field, after it resolves we get to normal summon a spellcaster. Now the reason that is so important is because we get to normal summon the original Alistair, we'll be able to trigger the effect to grab us an invocation. So we actually get a lot of resource off of the back of the Divine Spirit, and Alistair, believe it or not, is not a once per turn to search out invocation, because it was only ever searching out the invocation on normal summon or being flipped face up, which usually you don't do that multiple times in a turn unless you get additional effects like the Awais, which is really kind of cool. So utilizing this as well, and remember it also has a graveyard effect that is, if a face-up fusion monster you control is sent to the graveyard except by battle, while it is specifically in your graveyard, you get to special summon it, so that can be very useful as well. So we're going to banish the Awais, add the Alistair the Invoker, normal summon down the Alistair Invoker, use the effect of Alistair the Invoker to grab us an invocation, and now we're able to keep on pushing. Now, one very important thing to remember is if you want to special summon down your Alistair the Remnants right now, you will have to increase the attack of Alistair the Invoker, and if you do that, it will be too strong to be linked off into the Almirage. Now, we're in an okay position here, because we do have the Awais as the wind, that if we do go through the Remnants, we will be able to get access to Invocation Sword. But honestly, we're in a better position now to hold back the Alistair the Remnants by linking off Alistair the Invoker. Then we activate Invocation, banishing our own Alistair from the graveyard, banishing the Almirage from the field. And in doing so, we're going to go into the brand new Invoked Seraph, because this requires Alistair plus a fire or wind monster, which is what we've just done with the Almirage. Now we do have its own effect if we want to special summon from the graveyard, but at the moment we don't have any monster there. So we're going to recycle the invocation first, putting that back into the deck, and then getting the Alistair back to our hand. Now we also have the ability to utilize the Remnants if we want to, or you can discard the Alistair, giving you 1000 attack on the Seraph. But remember, because we used an additional normal summon off of the back of the Weiss Divine Spirit, we can actually just normal summon down the Alistair. And again, grab us an invocation, because that is not a hard once per turn moment, which is really, really kind of cool. Now, at this position here, we still can maintain our on-field effect of this guy, which is still quite important. And depending on how far we want to push, we can also now use the Remnants to target our Alistair or Sarath. Either or, doesn't make much of a difference right now. Increases attack by 1,000, and then we get to use this on-summon effect to banish an invoke monster from our extra deck to add an invocation or a spell that mentions it. Now, I'm going to banish the Kaliga here, and there is reasoning behind that, because we want to add Invocation Sword. So wherever that may be. There we go, we're going to grab our Invocation Sword. Now, the other kind of options you want to be looking towards, which is where your Sarath will come in a little bit later on, is you do want to try and aim for your Invoked Baron, which requires a Light or Earth, Light being the Sarath, and then this ultimately ends up getting you access to one of the two new cards, either the Gamma Summon or the Virokam. Another thing we can now do as well is we do have options to utilise the Invocation Sword. We don't have an Alistair banished as of yet, so you kind of want to, again, make sure you get as much advantage off the back of these as possible. So if we use both of these, linking these together, and we can go into our Proxy F Magician. Now, some people choose to play IP Masquerena, that's also absolutely fine, and some people try to also play Alistair the Invoker of Madness, is actually also fine as well. So it just gives you a little bit more resource should you want to. Now, currently we've got two dark monsters in the graveyard, so if we did want to utilise our invocation, we could banish those and go that way. But we can now also use the Invoked Sarath to bring back one of the Alistairs. So that's also very, very important as well. So you can bring back any of the Alistairs, and now you've got another Alistair the Invoker in rotation. So we could use our invocation to banish these from the field. We can link them off, or we can also use Proxy F Magician. So during the main phase, you get to fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from the field as fusion material. If a fusion monster is fusion summoned to a zone this card points to, you get to special summon a monster from the hand with 1,000 or less attack. So if we wanted to get another monster into rotation, we could very easily do that as well. Now, the reason that's quite important is that we can use Proxy F Magician's effect here to do one of two things. Now, I quite like the idea, just to clear out the extra monster zone if I do go for the Oceanus, is to utilise both of these here to get us access to an Evoked Elysium during our turn. Now, the Evoked Elysium has the quick effect that as it is treated as pretty much every single attribute, we get to tribute it, and then we can banish all of the attributes of the same from our opponent's field. Now, it doesn't have to tribute itself, but because it counts every attribute, you're kind of covered. But if your opponent plays a specific monotype of attribute, apologies on that one, because your opponent can play a monotype of attribute, if you wanted to, you could just banish something like a different invoked monster and then do it that way. So again, loads of different options. Now what we can do is we do have the graveyard effect of the Invoked Sarath. So this one is in the graveyard. We can banish it to fusion summon an invoked fusion monster from the extra deck by banishing this card from the graveyard and monsters from the field or grave as material. So we've got the ability to go into a Macabre here. So use the Invoked Sarath, use Alistair the Invoker, and now we're adding the Invoked Macabre to the field. So again, just another line of protection, and as it currently stands, we're backed up with monsters and spells, which is probably more common with this type of deck. Now, we still haven't even gone into the Invoked Baron, so if we wanted to, we could have gone down that route as well. It really is entirely up to you. You still have Invocation Sword that will help you do that. It's just up to you on which route you'd want to go. Now, what I mean by that is, as this currently stands, I have the option to go into Baron. Baron will then either get me access to an invocation, or will get me access to the Gamma Summon to set up the Kaliga. Because I've already banished the Kaliga, I'm actually going to use my Invocation Sword to fusion summon from the extra deck using monsters I control. But because I'm summoning an invoked fusion monster, I can also return monsters from any banishment to the graveyard. So I'm going to put back one or two options. I'm going to put back my Alistair the Invoker, and I'm going to put back my Kaliga. And then this is going to allow me to put the Invoked Oceanus into the extra monster zone. Now, the reason it's important that this goes into the extra monster zone is that with this being in the extra monster zone, any monster sent to my opponent's graveyard is banished instead. So again, I'm facilitated by a little bit more as well. I can now also use the graveyard effect of the Invocation Sword, putting it back into the deck and getting me the Alistair back to the hand. Now this is where you can vary out your options. What I've basically done here is I've maintained my full hand advantage. I can use another invocation if I want to. Honestly, I don't think I need to, but I can do. Because I've got the Alistair the Remnants, I've got options to go into either, I mean technically, I could go into an Oceanus using the Caliga in the graveyard and Alistair on the field. So maybe this could have been a Bay Baron. So maybe we do that instead. Maybe, oh no, because I need the Caliga in the graveyard to be the Dark Monster. So I think actually I'm kind of happy with what I've got here. I don't have enough fusion monsters yet that I'm happy with utilising in order to get to the Hyper Invoked Aeon. But, I mean, maybe I can push a little bit further. I just don't think I need to, if I'm being honest. Like, ending this field here, at this moment in time, I've got an answer to a monster effect or a spell effect by holding on to the invocation. I can banish my opponent's monster. Like, I can either get rid of just all their darks, or I can get rid of any attribute they put onto the field. Anything that goes to their graveyard, any monster that goes to their graveyard is banished instead. So again, very, very important. And then I'm also facilitated a little bit more with Ash and Ogre. So let's say I use both of those. That then means that they've got much less of a push. And then if they try to attack anything, I could put any of these into attack. But I can also give them an extra 1,000 defense with the Alistair as well. If we draw for turn, didn't shuffle, but doesn't matter what we draw for turn anyway, regardless. Just switching these to attack is more than enough, because you've got 2,500 here, you've got 3,000 here, you've got 3,200 here, and we've got 1,800. I can extend by bringing down an Alistair the Remnants, giving any of these another 1,000, and then I can also drop this Alistair on any of these, giving them an additional 1,000 as well. So that should be more than enough for game. Now that was a very long test hand, but that's the first test hand of this deck, so I wanted to kind of give you as much information as possible, because you have so many different avenues that you can try out depending on what you want to try and achieve. So what we'll do is we'll do another test hand going first, and possibly I might show you the different options you can go for. So I could probably back this field up with a Hyper Invoked Aeon and maybe a Caliga, so limit your opponent to one monster effect and yourself. Or I can also work my way into the Vicarum, or we can kind of just set up a extra deck rip with the Hyper Invoked Aeon as well. The only difference with the Aeon is you kind of want to try and go through as many different fusion monsters as possible, so that when you do summon it with either Invocation or the Invoked Sword, you get to look at your opponent's extra deck, and you get to decimate it by 3 cards at least. So after another decent shuffle, and a good old cut, our opening hand will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Again, a very, very nice hand here. So, depending if you want to play under, I mean, it doesn't make much of a difference to play under Droll, because you'd activate the Awais would summon the Awais itself, you'd banish the Awais from the field, you'd get the Alistair, add the Alistair and normal summon it, and then you'd go Chain Link 1 Alistair, your opponent would go Chain Link 2 Droll, so you still wouldn't get direct access to the invocation there. So actually Droll could be kind of painful one way or another. Looking at this particular hand here, just trying to think if there's a way that the sword can play around that, but I don't think it can, because of course we can send a Alistair from deck to grave, but then we don't really have a way to get it back. And then looking at random cards from our opponent's deck, it's nice, but again, it doesn't really give us everything we need. So, I mean, we could normal summon down the Alistair. That would be the safest route possible, because just by normal summoning down the Reminiscent, we get direct access to an Invocation or an Invocation Sword. So we've got the access. That is, taking Droll into account, I'm going to do it this way, just to make sure we've got that play. Okay, and then after you've resolved this, probably need Invocation, to be honest. So you take direct Invocation, which is a bit of a shame, because it means that Sword's going to be a little bit harder to get into rotation. But if we're trying to respect Droll, this is the way we need to do it. And if our opponent doesn't have Droll, you go, cool, happy days, let's push on. But if they do have Droll, and just to show this deck being a little bit more negative, I suppose. So let's say they do have Droll. Unfortunately, we can't turn our Alistair into Almirage here. But we will be able to activate the Spirit Sword. The Spirit Sword would get us access to the Awais. We can Awais into Alistair if we want to. It doesn't make much of a difference, but if we go Awais into Alistair, add the Alistair, normal summon the Alistair, no effect. But because we've normal summoned it, we can link it off and go into Almirage. That's in the graveyard. We can then use Invocation. We can banish the Alistair from the graveyard. We can banish the Almirage from the field. We get access to the Seraph. We can then use Invocation to add back. And then we just need to get the Seraph to the graveyard. I mean, we still have our main normal summon. Oh, no, we don't, sorry, because we used it on the Alistair the Remnants. Pretty sure Invocation is only Alistair the Invoker. Yeah, specifically Alistair the Invoker. It wasn't ahead of its time, unfortunately. I mean, you'd do the exact same thing. You could even normal summon down, not normal summon, sorry, you can drop this down to give this an extra 1,000 and use the Seraph to bring it back. The only benefit is you would have to then link these two together. And the reason you link these two together is you go into Proxy F. Proxy F can then fuse these two together with a Invoke monster and a monster special from the extra deck. Gives you the Elysium. We can then use our Seraph, which will be able to banish. Does it have to banish itself? Yeah, it has to banish this card from the graveyard. So you'd banish this and banish an Alistair, which will give you access to the Macabre. Unfortunately, we only have access to a monster effect negation. The Bay Baron would let you add, so you're under draw anyway, not going to be that effective. We don't have, no, because it has to use itself. Otherwise, we could have gone into the Oceanus, but we set the Super Poly. I'm just trying to think what we can actually get into with the Super Poly. I don't think it really. I mean, it would only get us into the Hyper Invoked Aeon with what we currently have. So I'd guess we kind of hold it here. Maybe a different way would have been, instead of Proxy F, you go into SP Little Knight, maybe. And then the Seraph would do, so you'd either have these two, or you'd have SP Little Knight plus the Macabre, I think. Yeah, it doesn't make a huge difference. But under draw, we've still been able to get to Macabre, we've still got Elysium, and we've got Super Poly. Obviously, this isn't controlled via draw, this is just obviously still an interaction. The Macabre is only going to be able to answer a spell effect, which isn't really ideal. You'd probably want to be able to answer one more card. But draw, I would say, is one of the more effective hand interactions against this deck. Specifically, like back in the day, even if you'd go Magical Meltdown and then let that resolve and then get hit with a draw, that would still be quite painful, because if you can be locked off with your fusion spells, it's always going to be an uphill battle. Anyway, let's now go second. So we're just going to shuffle this up. I'm only going to do one test hand going second, but just to kind of show you what the deck can try to do. With this particular build, you do play a lot of hand interactions, and those hand interactions are going to be able to, hopefully, give you a bit more of a better field. Or maybe too much of too many hand interactions. This needs to be an Alistair or a Route 2 Alistair. And it's not. Okay. This is the downside of playing so many hand interactions, but the idea is you'd go Bell, Ash, Drolls of no use, Gamma Summon. I mean, it would still help you. You're not going to be able to do it. Basically what I'm trying to say is you're not going to do a huge amount with this hand, because you would Bell your opponent, you would Ash your opponent, you would then have to set the Super Polymerization, set the Gamma Summon, or use the Super Polymerization if it's active, but we don't play any real generic targets. If they do have one that sets you up, great. If not, what you'll need to do is you'd pass it over to your opponent's turn. You'd then have to use your Gamma Summon. I could banish an Alistair monster. Oh, I need to banish him from the graveyard. yeah, okay, it's not really good at doing anything. You just draw and Bell again and then maybe Super Poly. So, unfortunate, but they happen. But at least I'd show you those as well. Not to say that this deck is perfect. There will be times where you will see one too many hand interactions. It's kind of what happens in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh these days. So we're going to shuffle up, we're going to cut up, and we're going to try that one again. Starting off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was wondering if I was just going to see all starters now. Let's say we Bell and draw our opponent, so their end field is going to be a lot weaker. We draw for turn, Terraforming, pretty nice. We'll go Terraforming, just to try and bait out some form of interaction here. But because once we get Magical Meltdown into rotation, which is usually I wouldn't say a massive choke point, but it's usually a point that your opponent goes, ooh, I probably shouldn't let that resolve, because it then starts meaning that your opponent cannot negate your fusion summons once you get to Alistair, and then go normal summon Alistair. Alistair grabs Invocation, great success. I suppose we can then also special summon down the Vicarum, because if we have an Alistair monster in our field or grave, you get special on this card from the hand, and if special summons, you set an invocation or a spell that mentions it from the deck. When your opponent activates a card or effect in response to your fusion monster's effect activation, quick event banishes card you control, and if you do, negate that opponent's effect. So we do this, we'll set an invocation. We don't need sword, we'll get sword off the back of Alistair. The remnants, so grab us an invocation. We've got Bell and Droll, so pretty much everything we need. I don't need to go into Almirage here, but if I wanted to set up Purgatrio, I can do. So then we can activate the set invocation, banish Alistair and the Droll and Lockbird. There we go. That'll get us access to the Seraph. Then we've got, I can target any level 6 or lower, so either my graveyard or my opponent's graveyard, or I can just use Invocation to put it back to grab me back the Alistair. We can use the Remnants, target the Seraph, bump this up if we need to, and then banish one from the extra deck. Let's get rid of Kaliga, I guess, just to get Oceanus into rotation. Kaliga, grab Sword, so we've got that set ready to go. I don't really want to go into SP Little Knight as yet, there's just no benefit in doing that. So probably activate Invocation, get the Alistair to the graveyard, banish the Almirage, go into Purgatrio. So now I've got my aggressor. There we go. Then let's go. Can do Seraph, bring back my Alistair. It's quite a healthy field at this moment in time, but I still have more plays to make, so let me just have a quick look. Yeah, there we go. So let's go 2 into Proxy F. Proxy F to fuse these two. Gets me into Elysium. Then I've got the graveyard effect of the Seraph. Let's banish. Has to be itself plus one of the Alistairs. Gets me into Macabre. Activate Sword. What have we got here? So Sword. And just go into an Oceanus. Like if my opponent's got graveyard effects, we'll go into the Oceanus. We'll put back your Kaliga and Alistair. There we go. I can add Alistair back to the hand, and we'll go for the Invoker. So that we can use Invoker's effect, buff one of these by 1,000, probably going to be the Purgatrio. And then Purgatrio just goes doof, 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 doof. Does a lot of damage there. And then we've got 3,000, 2,500, and 3,200. So very, very aggressive overall. And like I said, the Droll and Bell might have done enough to make the field a little bit weaker, and then depending on if they can play during our turn will depend on if you might need to try and get access to Macabre a little bit earlier. You might want to go to Elysium a little bit earlier, just to kind of give you a bit more of a push. But overall, yeah, the deck's really, really good. I can see exactly how Danilo ended up getting his position at Worlds, but then also topping the event. Like, player caliber, massive. But then to also use a deck like Invocation or Invoked is also very, very powerful and impressive. Anyway, that's it for the entire profile. You've also got the Yugioh that I never really used, but players will play it a little bit differently. I like Elysium. I think Elysium is such an incredibly good card, so I do focus a lot of my plays on that. But then Seraph and everything else is also insanely good. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.